Plato believed that poetry and literature were misleading because they imitated the world, which itself was only an imperfect copy of true reality. To him, this meant that literature was even further removed from the truth and could misguide people. He also argued that literature was dangerous because it stirred up emotions rather than encouraging rational thought. These concerns led him to propose strict censorship of poetry in his ideal society. However, Aristotle took a different approach. He did not see literature as a mere imitation of reality, but rather as something that could reveal deeper truths about human life. Aristotle's method was to classify and analyze literature based on its different types and purposes. He believed that to understand literature, one must look at how it is structured and what it aims to do. Instead of judging literature as good or bad based on moral grounds, he sought to describe its essential nature. He observed that all poetry, including epic, tragic, comic, and other forms, involved imitation or mimesis. Literature, he argued, does not simply copy reality, but represents actions and emotions in a way that makes them meaningful. Different types of poetry use different methods. Some use words, while others use music or performance. Some focus on great and noble characters, while others highlight the foolishness of ordinary people. Aristotle rejected the idea that poetry should be defined by its use of meter or verse. He pointed out that even scientific and medical texts had been written in verse in ancient Greece, yet no one would call them poetry. Instead, he emphasized that what makes poetry unique is its ability to represent human actions and experiences in a structured and meaningful way. He also noted that different kinds of stories serve different purposes. Some stories portray heroes who are better than ordinary people, inspiring admiration. Others depict flawed characters, making audiences reflect on human weaknesses. Some stories, like comedy, exaggerate human folly, while others, like tragedy, present deep and serious conflicts. Tragedy, in particular, was of great interest to Aristotle. He saw it as the highest form of poetry because it could evoke deep emotions such as pity and fear. A well-constructed tragedy, he argued, follows a clear structure with a beginning, middle, and end. It presents characters facing serious dilemmas, leading to a resolution that affects both the characters and the audience. Aristotle believed that tragedy helps people process emotions in a healthy way, an idea he called catharsis. This means that by watching a tragic play, audiences can release built-up emotions, leaving them calmer and more balanced. According to Aristotle, every tragedy has 6 key elements: plot, character, thought, diction, melody, and spectacle. Of these, plot is the most important because it drives the action and gives the story its meaning. Characters matter, but they serve the plot rather than existing for their own sake. A well-structured plot should be logical, with each event leading naturally to the next. It should also be complex, meaning that it includes twists, such as reversals of fortune or sudden discoveries that change the course of the story. These moments, known as peripeteia reversal and anagnorisis, recognition, make a tragedy more powerful by surprising the audience, while still making sense within the story. Character, while secondary to plot, still plays a crucial role. Aristotle believed that a tragic hero should not be completely good or completely evil. Instead, the hero should be a relatable person with some flaw or weakness, which leads to their downfall. This flaw, known as hamartia, is not necessarily a moral failing, but rather a mistake in judgment. The best tragedies, Aristotle argued, are those where the hero's misfortune is caused by this flaw, rather than by pure evil or random chance. Aristotle also discussed how language contributes to a successful tragedy. He noted that good dialogue should be appropriate for the characters and the situation. In addition, the rhythm and musical elements of a play enhance its emotional impact. However, he considered spectacle, visual effects, and dramatic staging to be the least important element of tragedy. While stage effects can enhance a play, the power of tragedy comes primarily from the story itself, not from special effects. Aristotle's emphasis on plot and structure extended to other forms of literature as well. He argued that epic poetry, such as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, shared many of the same qualities as tragedy, but was different in its form. Epics were longer and used narrative rather than dramatic action. Unlike tragedies, which focused on a single, tightly structured story, epics could include multiple subplots and shifts in time and place. However, Aristotle maintained that the best epics, like the best tragedies, still followed a logical structure and centered on a main action. One of Aristotle's most important ideas was that literature should not be judged by whether it is historically accurate, but rather by whether it presents a deeper truth. He argued that while historians report what actually happened, poets and playwrights show what could happen, what is probable or necessary in human life. Because of this, poetry is more philosophical than history. A well-told fictional story can reveal universal truths about human nature, even if the events never actually occurred. Aristotle's views on literature directly challenged Plato's criticisms. While Plato saw poetry as an imitation of an imitation, making it 3 steps removed from reality, Aristotle saw poetry as a way of discovering deeper truths. By presenting actions and emotions in a structured way, literature helps people understand life better. He also countered Plato's claim that poetry corrupts people by stirring up emotions. Instead, he argued that literature provides a safe way for people to process emotions, leading to emotional balance rather than disorder. Later thinkers built on Aristotle's ideas, developing them in different directions. One of the most influential critics after Aristotle was Longinus, who wrote a treatise called On the Sublime. Unlike Aristotle, who focused on the structure and purpose of literature, Longinus was interested in the effect literature has on its audience. He believed that the greatest works of literature create a sense of awe and transport the reader into a higher emotional or intellectual state. Instead of analyzing literature based on its plot or characters, he judged it by its ability to inspire and elevate the reader. Longinus argued that true greatness in literature comes from a combination of deep thought, powerful emotion, and noble expression. He believed that writers must possess strong character and insight into human nature to produce truly sublime works. His approach was different from both Plato and Aristotle. Plato focused on morality and truth. Aristotle focused on structure and function, but Longinus emphasized the emotional and spiritual impact of literature. Aristotle's ideas remained highly influential throughout history. His concept of mimesis helped shape theories of realism in literature, while his emphasis on plot influenced storytelling in drama and fiction. His idea of catharsis became central to discussions about the emotional power of art. His view that poetry expresses universal truths, rather than just copying reality, provided a foundation for literary criticism that continues to be relevant today.